So, a very good morning and hi to all of you. Yesterday, we started with the lesson that is the breathing and exchange of gases. Right? That is the lesson that we have started yesterday, and we have seen the brief introduction to the breathing and exchange of gases. Yes, in the introductory concept, we have tried to understand so what is breathing and what is the exchange of gases and what gases are getting exchanged and where are they getting exchanged, right? All of this we have seen. Yes, first we have tried to understand the breathing. We have called it by two names, right? The ventilation and the respiration. Then we have seen the gases are getting exchanged. What are gases? What gases are getting exchanged, right? The gases, that is CO2 and O2. O2, which is present in the atmosphere, is being brought in with the help of the respiratory tubes. Yes, and CO2, which has been produced in the body, has been sent out, and this mechanism, right? This mechanism has taken place, right? This mechanism has taken place at two locations. Yes, we have seen two locations. One location is at the site of alveoli, and other location is at the tissues. Right? So two locations. That is the basic idea about the breathing and exchange of gases. And to continuation of yesterday's lesson, what do we see is today we'll see some of the respiratory organs in the animals. Before we start discussing the human beings and how the respiratory structures are arranged in human beings in the form of lungs, right? So how the lungs are arranged, how they are supported, how the lungs are supported by the respiratory tubes. Before we see all of that, so we try to understand what kind of respiratory mechanisms all the remaining animals in the animal world are following in the exchange of these respiratory gases. That is also we need to be understanding. And for the respiratory membrane, yesterday we spoke about the respiratory membrane. Yesterday we spoke about a respiratory membrane which is present in the tissues and as well as in the alveoli. And any respiratory membrane for that matter has to have some characters to be able to allow the diffusion, right? To be able to allow the diffusion, right? What are some characters this respiratory membrane should have, right? One of these is this respiratory membrane should be moist, right? This respiratory membrane should be moist regardless of what kind of membrane that is there, regardless of what kind of membrane, I mean which kind of animals it is there, what kind of membrane that is, it should be moist and it should be very thin, obviously, because diffusion is happening. That's why the membrane should be very thin. Most of the times the tissue that we find here is simple tissue, that is simple squamous tissue. Simple squamous, one layer of cells will be there in this. That simple squamous tissue, especially in the human body. Take human body into consideration. The thin membrane there is made of the simple squamous tissue. Just one layer of cells will be there. That's why it is referred as the simple squamous tissue. Obviously, that is very thin, and then it should be large. It should be large in relation to the size of body. To the size of body of any particular animal. Right? We can take any animal. So the surface area should be large enough. To be able to exchange the respiratory gases. Okay. So those three characters should be there. We spoke about the respiratory membrane. So for this membrane to be able to exchange gases, it should be moist and it should be thin and it should be large in relation to the size of body, so that all these gases can be taken in and the gas that is not required, which is harmful to the body, can be sent out. Okay, so that is the respiratory membrane. Very briefly about that. Now we shall see the organs, right? So different kinds of organs that are present in the animal world. If you see, so we start the animal kingdom with the sponges or the poriferans, right? Sponges. Then comes the cnidarians. Then comes the platyhelminthes. I mean, we have ctenophora animals as well in between. So even in the ctenophorans, cnidarians and ctenophorans. Ctenophorans. And if you see these two sets of animals, the sponges and the cnidarians, and these two are aquatic animals. I mean, these two groups of animals are aquatic animals. Some are mostly marine are there, some live in freshwater as well in these groups. Say for example, in the cnidarians, as an example, if you take Hydra, which is as a matter of fact an aquatic animal, which is freshwater aquatic animal, Hydra, and many of the sponges are marine. So we have freshwater sponges as well, but regardless, all these animals are aquatic in nature. That means they live in water. Since they are living in water, obviously their exchange membrane is moist enough to be exchanging the gases. Yes, and many of the cells are readily in contact with the environment they are living in, right? They are readily in contact with the environment they are living in. So that is why there is this free exchange of gases that is happening, right? So that is why there is this free exchange of gases that is happening. So without having to have any specialized respiratory organs, right? So do they have any specialized respiratory organs? Not necessarily, right? If you take the sponges have this specialized system called as the canal system, right? So with the help of this system, the water is allowed in with the help of all these bodily pores, right? We have this ostia, many ostia is there. With the help of this many ostia, all the water is allowed into the body, and along with the water, the gas also will come, right? I mean, the respiratory gases will also come and they will be exchanged. Yes, so that is the canal system. And take the cnidarians also have a cavity, right? Cnidarians also have a cavity. So if you take the example of Hydra, so they have this cavity called as gastrovascular cavity. They have this cavity called as gastrovascular cavity, and the cells which are lying on the external side of this cavity, the exchange will take place, and some of the water also flows through this gastrovascular cavity where the exchange can happen internally as well, right? I mean, the exchange of gases here is happening externally as well internally in the case of cnidarians and Hydra. And same can be considered because gastrovascular cavity is also present in ctenophora groups of animals. It's a matter of fact, it should be see here. So ctenophoran groups of animals. And platyhelminthes is the flatworms. Flatworms, they also do not have any specialized respiratory organs. You can see majority of them are parasites, right? Endoparasites. We can take the example of a flatworm, that is planaria. So here also the exchange of gases will simply happen by simple diffusion only. The exchange of gases here also will happen by simple diffusion. So these are kind of primitive animals. These are sort of primitive animals because a specialized respiratory organs haven't developed here, and majority of them are living in aquatic environments, so that it's not much of a problem for them to be maintaining this moist nature for this exchange membrane. Okay, and the next set of animals that we have is, we can go with group Annelida. Annelida. So Annelida animals are the animals kind of started successfully living, some of the animals, not all of them, some of the animals started successfully living in the terrestrial environment. Kind of started successfully living in the terrestrial environment. Right? They start venturing out into the land. Annelida groups of animals. So the significant example that we have when it comes to Annelida is earthworm. Right? So a significant example, which is the segmented worm that we have, the earthworm. And if you see, to transport the gases, a specialized circulatory system has also developed in Annelida, which is an evolutionary advantage as well, right? So for the first term, a kind of circulatory system has developed here. Circulatory system which coordinate to transport the respiratory gases, which coordinate to transport the respiratory gases when it comes to the Annelida groups of animals. So what organ do we have? Do we have any specialized organ developed in these Annelida groups of animals, especially the earthworm, which is terrestrial? There are aquatic animals as well. We are not going into that now. The earthworm circulatory system and the exchange is happening here cutaneously. Right? The exchange is happening cutaneously. That means the skin. Right? Skin is doubling the action here. One thing, it is protecting, and as well it is exchanging the gases as well. For this, how is that made possible? Because we have an elaborately developed circulatory system here. Right? We have elaborately developed circulatory system, and this elaborately developed circulatory system is right beneath, right? It is right beneath the skin of these animals, right? It is right beneath the skin of these animals, and with all these different kinds of blood vessels, exclusive circulatory system, blood vessels, right? So right beneath this circulatory system, as a result of that, so when a gas is diffused here, right, the gas is CO2 diffused here, and it is being collected by the elaborately developed circulatory system, and it gets transported. When you are studying the study of earthworms in our first year classes, we have seen the different sort of blood vessels that are present in the Annelida groups of animals, right? So that is one thing. And one more point here is, these are terrestrial animals. How will they be able to maintain that moistness? How will they be able to maintain that moistness, moist skin? How will they be able to do that? How will they be able to do that is, they will be able to do that because they secrete mucus, right? These animals will secrete the mucus. The skin contains this mucus secreting glands, right? The skin contains these mucus secreting glands. With the assistance of these glands, so the membrane has been kept moist. The membrane has been kept moist, so they can exchange, right? The gases can be exchanged here. So that is the cutaneous respiration that you will see in the annelidan groups of animals. Next specialized organs, if you see, we have just to see again what we have seen so far is, we are seeing the respiratory organs, the different groups of animals, sponges, cnidarians, ctenophorans, and five groups as a matter of fact we have seen. Sponges, cnidarians and ctenophorans and platyhelminthes, it's nothing but simple diffusion only. and majority of the animals are present in the aquatic medium, so that it's not much of a difficult for them to be exchanging gases there. And what you need to be remembering here is there are no specialized organs have developed here. Yes, and the specialized organ, and which is doubling the role of protection and as well as exchange of gases, is the skin here. The kind of respiration is called as cutaneous respiration, because the skin is playing a role here. Cutaneous respiration, and the example that we have is earthworm. So here the skin is being helped by the elaborately developed circulatory system in the annelids. Okay, so that is the circulatory system in 4 groups. And the next set of animals, we have the arthropoda groups of animals. So this is the most successful and most diverse group, most successful and as well as most diverse group in the animal world, the arthropoda. So that is why the organs that have developed here are also very diverse. The organs which have developed here are also very diverse. What are these organs? In insects, in insects, we have this specialized tubular respiratory apparatus, respiratory system, is called as the tracheal system. Is called as the tracheal system. Tracheal system. What is the tracheal system here is, so we have the collection of tubes. We have this collection of tubes which are connecting the entire cells of the these insects to outside. Right? This the set of tubes, group of tubes that are there, which are connecting the different cells of the insects. Right? Obviously, if you see the human beings, we have the nostrils. We have the nostrils to allow the gases to be exchanged. And in here, what we have is, we have this external opening called as spiracles. Here this external opening called as spiracles, and these spiracles allow the air into tracheal tubes. That's it's a whole mechanism is there. How it gets transported, how it gets exchanged, all of that will we are not going to that detail at this juncture. Just remember that there is a specialized system called as tracheal system in insects which belong to arthropoda. That is one set of specialized organs that have developed here. And other set of specialized organs that we have developed is, we have gills, right? And then we have book gills, and then we have the book lungs. Right? So book lungs, essentially, is there any difference between all of these? Is there any difference between all of this? Strictly, if you want to speak a difference, you don't find any difference. Kind of slight differences in form of arrangement. That's it. But essentially, all these are same. Having having this exchange membranes, stacked one above the other, to allow the exchange of gases. All these membranes are arranged or stacked one above the other. That is it. And primarily, so these are found in aquatic crustaceans. We can say an example of Limulus, right? Limulus. So we all know what's a limulus is, right? It's a crab. It's a crab which is a living fossil. Living fossil, that is the which belong to arthropoda. And booklets. Booklets are seen in two terrestrial animals, the spiders and scorpions. Right? Booklets are seen in spiders and the scorpions. Yes. And apart from this, what other organs? What other organs? Essentially, these are the organs that are these four kinds of specialized organs that are seen in the arthropoda. And when you take up the mollusca again, right? When you take up the mollusca now, the primary organs that we can say for the molluscan groups of animals is gills only. Right? So primary organs we can say the gills only, and the term that you associate for the exchange of gases by the gills is called as branchial respiration. It is called as the branchial respiration. What are we calling it? We are calling it is the branchial respiration, and in here the gills are playing a role. You know, so in arthropoda, do we have gills? Yes. In mollusca, do we have gills? Yes. Yes. And what other animals do we have? What other animals do we have is, you know, in invertebrates, the hemichordates have the gills. Right? So in chordates, different kinds of fishes have the gills. Right? So different kinds of fishes, the primary mode of exchange, fishes have the gills, and as well the tadpole larva. And as well the tadpole larva. So what is this tadpole larva? So this is the larva of frog. Right? So this is the larva of frog. The exchange happens by gills. Right? So essentially what is happening here is all these organs have developed different mechanisms to make the water flow. Over the surface of all these gill membranes, right? Make this water flow on the surface of all these gill membranes so that the exchange of gases can happen, right? So that is different kinds of gill structures that are present in different sorts of animals, you know. And what are these gills? Right? Where do they develop? The gills are out pockets of growth, right? So here the gills. So what are these gills? The gills are, we can say, these are out pockets of growth from pharynx. So we know this region in alimentary canal, right? The gills are out pockets of growth from pharynx. That is where they have developed, in the pharynx region. That's they have developed. That's why sometimes they are referred as the pharyngeal gill apparatus or pharyngeal gills. Most prominently is seen in most elaborately developed gills is seen in the primitive chordates such as fishes, the pharyngeal gill slits we call them. Yes, those are the some organs for the exchange of gases in the animals. In arthropoda, four kinds: tracheal, gills, book gills, and booklets. Mollusca, primarily gills. Hemichordate, also gills. Echinodermata is simple diffusion only. Right? Echinodermata. So we'll also see the echinodermata. So I'll erase this. These are the various kinds of organs. And fishes, we also have gills. And one more important point you need to be remembering here is the tadpole larva. The tadpole larva the exchange is by the branchial respiration, the gills, the frog, right? When it is developing, the exchange happens by the gills. In adult frogs, the exchange is by lungs. We're gonna see about that now. So in Echinodermata, respiratory structures are poorly developed. Respiratory structures are poorly developed because of the reason that majority of the animals have this system called as water vascular system. They have a system called as water vascular system in Echinodermata. Right, in Echinodermata you have the system called as water vascular system, which plays a role in gaseous exchange, and this one is also called as the ambulacral system. This one is also called as the ambulacral system. And hemichordata we have seen the gills. Chordata, primitive chordate animals also have the gills. What about the advanced chordates animals? Right, in chordates, as I have explained before, the gills in fishes and tadpole, right? Fishes and tadpole larvae, and lungs, specialized structures called the lungs, vascular bags, right? The lungs are called as the vascular bags because they have this elaborate arrangement of blood vessels for the exchange of gases in the lungs, right? So lungs are called as the vascular bags. The lungs have developed for the first time in the amphibians. Amphibians are the animals which live in aquatic and as well as terrestrial mode, right? So that is where they also have diverse set of organs for the exchange of gases. Some of the amphibians will use skin, right? Cutaneous respiration will also you would see here. One is in amphibia, you are seeing three kinds of respiration. For amphibians, you would see three types of respiration, right? Three types of respiration that you would see. One, you are seeing the respiration by skin, which is cutaneous, and you would see the respiration by gills here because the tadpole larva is exhibiting it, right? Tadpole larva is exhibiting, so that is why you would see the branchial respiration as well. Since the tadpole larva is exhibiting it, the branchial respiration is also seen in amphibians, and since the lungs also are there, you would call it as the pulmonary respiration. Three kinds of respiration. You are seeing the cutaneous respiration because the skin is facilitating it, and bronchial respiration because tadpole larva is exhibiting it, and pulmonary respiration, the lungs are playing a role here. So three primary kinds of, and there is something called buccopharyngeal respiration as well in the amphibians. Buccopharyngeal kind of respiration also seen because here the oral cavity and the pharynx together will play a role in exchange of gases. Why is that here? Because amphibians are have this dual mode of living. Right? The amphibians have this dual. The amphibians have this dual mode of living. As a result of that, they have this diverse set of organs. From the next group, that is reptilians, right? So we have seen amphibians in the reptiles, aves, and in mammals, and in three groups of animals: reptiles, aves, and mammals. The respiration, right? Respiration is exclusively by lungs. right? Respiration exclusively by lungs it is happening. That is pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration. There are, adaptations. Say for example, in the case of AIDS, we have this air sacs to lighten their bodies. We have this air sacs to lighten their bodies. Adaptations are there, but primary organs for the exchange of gases in these animals is the lungs, right? So those are the different kinds of organs of respiration in the animals. Right? We have seen the different set of organs in the animal world, right? Hope we are clear about all these organs, and please do follow the entire lesson. Yes, and thank you all. We shall be continuing with the next part. So we shall be starting the human respiratory system. Please stick around and please give a like and make a subscribe. Thank you.